Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is a real short wrestling with the law, just a brief thing from something that recently happened that perhaps we could learn a little something from. I'm referring, of course, to the recent events that took place in New York City. Now, you may not be aware of it, but here's what happened. The other day, there were three police officers who went to a Shake Shack in downtown New York, in downtown Manhattan. And while they were there, apparently, they had their shakes, and their shakes caused them to be ill for some reason or another. Well, what happened was instantly there was a claim that they had been poisoned. And of course, there was a horrible reaction. My God, our officers are being attacked. Heaven help us, what's going on? In fact, the department's chief of detectives, Mr. Rodney Harrison, he went ahead and had this statement to say. He said, after a thorough investigation by the New York Police Department's Manhattan South investigators, it has been determined that there was no criminality at all by the Shake Shack workers. But before that had come out, before that happened, let's take a look at what else got said. First of all, we have to take a look at the Detective Endowment Association. You'll see it right there, right there. A labor union that represents 20,000 active and retired New York City detectives said they believe the three officers were intentionally poisoned by one or more workers. Now, we want to make this clear. Before there had even been an investigation at all, they had sworn that their officers had been intentionally poisoned. Now, why is that a bad thing? We're going to get to that in just one moment. But let's look at the other statements. The other statements that came from them was they went on to say that police in New York City and across the country are under attack by vicious criminals who dislike us simply because of the uniform we wear, which is untrue. After all, the uniforms, frankly, look kind of nice. I don't think we'll hate them because of the uniform. Now, there are some people who don't like you because you act like assholes on a regular basis. That part is true, but it's not because of the uniform that they wear. Now, we'll get to that again in a moment. The Police Benevolent Association, which is another one of their unions, Patrick Lynch said, when New York City police officers cannot even take a meal without coming under attack, it is clear that the environment in which we work has deteriorated to a critical level. Well, first of all, let's be honest. If police work is as dangerous as they say it is, there's always the potential of coming under attack, though no one expects it to come from their food. And in this case, it didn't come from their food. Now, this is not to say that there haven't been instances where there have been certain workers at some restaurants in some places who have done something to food or have refused to serve police officers. This is true. This has happened. But that wasn't the case here. So let's try and see if we can use this as a learning lesson. For the young attorneys out there, pay attention. And for the rest of you, you can use these lessons in the rest of your life as well. First of all, let's start with rule number 1. Don't presume. For some strange reason, the New York City Police Department, or I should say their union, just wanted to presume that somebody somehow was leading a giant attack against them, even though there was no proof of that whatsoever. By presuming, you have now put yourself on an angry footing, and I'm quite sure those combined 70,000 officers, not exactly known for being the calmest people in the world, were now going to be highly upset at Shake Shack. And even Shake Shack was horrified to hear about the issue, as I think anybody would. Nobody who runs a restaurant wants their customers to ever be harmed by some food they consume. But in this case, that just wasn't true. Also, don't play the victim until you know you are. Now, it's very difficult for somebody who's got the authority to walk around with a badge and a gun and the authority to go ahead and essentially mess up people's lives whenever they feel like it, to go ahead and suddenly play the role of victim. That's not to say that they can't be, because they most certainly can. There have been instances, as we all know, about random shootings that someone decides to take at a cop, or in the middle of just what seems to be a normal, ordinary, everyday traffic stop, where sometimes somebody decides that they're going to ruin or end that officer's day right then and there. Those are real facts. But you know something? People get food poisoning all the time. They get it here and any place else. And to have made the presumption that this was because of an attack was extremely wrong. So you want to make sure that until you know that this has been an intentional act, any kind, you want to be careful. That includes, ladies and gentlemen, at work. Sometimes there are statements that are made. You want to ask yourself whether or not those statements were intentional or whether they were just negligently bad. One of the other rules we want to have: gather evidence first, then make your claim. Now, unfortunately, this is one of the problems we have here in our American civil justice system, in that you can actually make a claim without ever having gathered any facts whatsoever. In fact, the strange thing about our civil justice system is the idea that you can sue somebody, and then after you've sued them, you can then force them to give you the evidence that proves that they have done you wrong. Criminal often doesn't work that way, or at least it's not supposed to. So one of the things you want to do in the future is you want to gather your facts. This is a case in which before the Police Benevolent Association ever said anything, they should have A, waited to see what the condition of the officers were, and B, waited to see what the result of the investigation was going to be. At that point, then they could have made a statement. If it turned out there had been wrongdoing, then each of those statements probably would have been, even if a tad overblown, it at least would have been understandable and logical. And of course, we want to make sure we remember this rule. A lot of us need to remember this rule whenever a legal situation pops up or whenever trouble pops up. Tell your buddies who do not know the facts to shut the fuck up. All right? Now, the reason for that is very simple. Your friends can get agitated sticking up for you. Your family can get agitated sticking up for you. But their talking doesn't make things better or easier. What makes things better or easier is having a chance for all the facts to be laid out or studied, and then whoever's supposed to present these facts, that's who you want to deal with. I tell clients all the time, do not discuss the facts of the case with anybody, including your family. You just can't, because they might get a little overly excited. Family members, friends should all be quiet when these things take place until you know the result of something. So let's go ahead and remember the 4 keys that we should have for almost any examination. 1, don't presume. Never. Everything is supposed to be a blank slate. The second thing, don't play the victim until you know you are. Make sure it's not an accident. Make sure it's not inadvertent. And then from there, you can go ahead and determine whether or not you've been wronged. Also, gather evidence first, then make your claim. Make sure you know what has happened, or as close to knowing as you possibly can, and then go from there. And finally, tell your buddies to, well, as we said, STFU, all right? Well, now that's all for today. As some of you have been asking us what's going to happen with some of the other interviews we've been doing. Some of them are in the can. When's our next live one going to be? We don't have the next live one set yet because I'm scheduled for a trial next at the end of this week that should go into next week. But we do have a couple in the can. What we hope to be able to go ahead and release within the next few days is an interview with Patrick Cronin, noted actor and professor, Richard Garrettson, and also the legendary Les Thatcher. Also in the can is Rebecca Scott. We're going to be having her on. She's a director, writer, production assistant, production designer, another former student of mine. So I'm looking forward to speaking with her. In the meantime, you go ahead and enjoy the rest of your night. I'm just getting started. And of course, whatever it is you're going to wrestle with, let's wrestle with it together. Bye-bye, folks.